Hello, everybody. I am here with Richard Rocket Smith, who's an air traffic controller for nearly 30 years. He sent me this awesome video of an F-16 emergency, and there's not a lot of times where you can actually talk to the controller that was involved with the emergency. So, Rocket, thanks for being on the channel. Thanks for coming on the show. Just tell me a little bit about your career and what you've been up to.
Well, thanks for having me. First off, I've enjoyed a lot of your videos, and my career started in the late 70s in Columbia, Missouri with a non-radar approach control, which that was a challenge.
Wow.
I was also a commercial instrument pilot, so it was nice for me to see both sides of that, how the non-radar portion worked. I got checked down that facility and went to Des Moines, Iowa for a couple of years, and then had the opportunity to go to Tampa Approach Control, Manpower. It's a great place to be. And it was especially great for me because I was a student of this game, air traffic control. I think it's an amazing profession. And being a pilot, I thought, how cool is this? I can sit in a radar scope. Not only can I fly my airplane, I can fly 10 more on this radar scope. And it's a blend. And coming to Tampa was great because we not only had some student pilots and worked at a lot of airports that have student activity, but we had GA, business, airlines, and the thrill of it was MacDill Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Because then we had 4 squadrons of F-16s that put sorties every day. And you got all kinds of experience level because it was a transition position for the new pilots coming in. And it was just a thrill to work them.
And so this video that we're about to show, what's the story on that? What's the background?
Well, the reason I wanted you to see it was because I've watched a couple of your videos, and as a pilot, you like to talk about crew resource management, which I, as the pilot, recognize how important that is. There's also crew resource management in air traffic control in how we flow traffic, and especially during emergencies. And I thought this tape indicated not only amazing work by the flight crews that are involved, which you'll hear, but I can tell you what the air traffic side was as we go along through it, and how that worked to have a very successful outcome that what could have been a very big disaster as this pilot elected to come to Tampa International dead stick. And there's a lot of population around this airport. So if he had made a bad call or we made a bad call en route, and that's the situation could have been completely different.
So what year was this about roughly?
Years in the late 80, 88, 89.
Okay.
About that time.
3, 2, 1, flight off.
The video you sent me, Retire 23, is their call sign?
Retire 23 was the flight instructor, and you have the wingman, a newbie pilot.
So the instructor is this is the instructor that has the emergency?
Correct.
And the student is the wingman that's trying to help him out?
Correct.
Right.
Warning reset. Head on the HUD.
So what this aircraft is doing now is it's going into an IR-46 training route, which is a low-altitude route north of Tampa. And just as they were entering the route, they think they ingested a bird. The engine started running rough. So he's climbing because he wants to get altitude so he can sort this out. And they're turning their flight towards the Gulf because their initial response is, if they're over the peninsula, is get out over the water because we can always sail out there and not endanger anything on the ground around Florida. So as he's climbing up, as you'll hear, he's out of 4,500 or 14,500 now. When he gets almost to 18,000, you'll see the screen start to flicker. And that's when the engine goes dead. And that's when the excitement really starts.
All right. Wow. That's already setting up. I recognize the Viper HUD, so that's good.
Punch that off. That off. Turn off all the other shit.
Yeah, warning reset. He's talking about turning other stuff. System probably. The engine has not failed yet.
Correct.
Because the way he's breathing, it sounds like he's on 100% oxygen.
While it's climbing, he's in the two-seater, and he's got a fellow riding in the back that really wasn't supposed to be there. But it worked out okay.
What do you mean he wasn't supposed to be there?
It was kind of like a short term, it's a friend of his or somebody that they owed an incentive ride to. So they just kind of, okay, this is a good time to do it. Why don't you jump in the back and we'll take you on this flight and introduce you to the F-16.
Just like Penny Benjamin and Top Gun. Yeah, that's probably his backseater that's on 100% oxygen.
Keep your feet out on the rudder. We're past the 16 now. We've still got 5,000 pounds of gas. 38 DME north. Copy that. November 33 Yankee Heavy.
Okay, so 38 DME to where? Where are we roughly? Where's he talking about?
38 DME from McDill, and
okay,
which is roughly 8 to 10 miles south of Tampa. So 48 miles from Tampa.
Okay,
so
still
looking okay because they're still climbing, the engine's still turning.
Yeah.
And you can also hear in the background, you hear the soft on the frequency too. So you've got the soft, you've got approach control, you've got the wingman, and of course you got retired T3.
And for people who don't know, SOF is a supervisor of flying. Somebody who usually sits in the tower or elsewhere and runs checklists, liaises with ATC. But the thing is, I want to point out too, what you just talked about. He's climbing because he still has a good engine, because 38 miles, you want a 1-to-1 glide ratio. It's a 7 to 5, but you want a 1-to-1. So he needs altitude. He doesn't have enough to glide in right now from 16,000 feet.
Well, yeah, I had tanks. I blew them off.
All right, so he punched his tanks off. He had 370-gallon drop tanks, and he punched them off.
Yep. Turn right at 270, right? Clear ILS. Let's get full stop on
And at this point, do you know, or does ATC know at what's going on yet?
He has told us that he thinks he ingested a bird and his engine's running rough, so he'd like to climb up the altitude and turn towards the southwest Portugal.
Gotcha.
357, contact Tampa now, 118.5.
Yep, it's going up.
Oh, okay.
Number 31, Romeo Dub. Mayday. 1200, terminated first descendant.
There, you lost the engine.
Tampa approach, retire 23. Retire 23, go ahead. Roger, I'm having engine failure this time. I'd like vectors direct to Tampa International. Retired Q3 record.
When I retired, I went back to the FAA as an instructor for the new controllers coming in. And I used this video with them because I wanted them to see not only CRM on the pilot side, but CRM on the controller side. And also, what do you need to be thinking about when an aircraft tells you it's got a problem? Because when this engine went out, as you could see, the pilot started talking, and immediately declared a mayday, perfect. No hesitation to clear the mayday. And then he paused for a second because he's thinking, okay, it's a little farther out of the Gulf than what I've got for altitude here. What's my best shot? Tampa International. So he immediately comes out with a plan. Let's go to Tampa International. And the controller, this is the best part, as far as the ATC side of it is, when I want you working that traffic, when he tells you I got a mayday and I want to come to Tampa International, that controller has to pick a heading right now to get him to the airport. You can't ask him what heading do you want, which your route is going to be. You need to make a decision now to get him on a heading that's going to get on the shortest route to the airport, because we got to get this down the ground. And that's what I think is so great. The pilot not hesitate to declare the emergency to stay where he wanted, and the controller's going to come back and he's going to give him a heading immediately.
Awesome. Yeah. And so right now, systems wise, you lose the engine, you've got the emergency power unit. So that is now a hazmat issue. Hydrazine is now running, and you've got a limited amount of time for it to run. It doesn't run forever. It's as much as the hydrazine is left. So he is in a kind of a no-win situation unless he can put it on the ground or find a place to eject. So seat cushion is now being sucked. All right.
Getting a 230 under your discretion, and we'll keep you advised. You run by 180. Give me a DME off of it now. You're presently 24 miles northeast of the Tampa Airport.
Okay, so 24 miles, that at 18,000 feet. We want a 1-to-1, but it's really a 7 to 5. So he's right on the edge of being able to make it. He needs everything to work exactly right for him. And like you talked about, the CRM or the crew resource or cockpit resource management has to be perfect because there is no slop. There's no room for error. This has to work.
Correct.
Copy. I think I can make it to there. I will have a flamed out engine. You copy? Wind 230 at 8 out. 3003.
So what this is right now, why it's going caution, is because the electrical systems are switching over. He's losing, if it's windmilling at all, it may be generating a little bit hydraulics and just some, it's not enough to run the generators, but he does have the EPU running. And sometimes as it shifts the loads, you'll get this, but he's got a lot on his plate. And I didn't realize when I first watched this that the backseater's with him. So that backseater's breathing heavy into his ear and distracting him as they go. But they both should be on 100% oxygen by the time, they go in because of the hydrogen.
Copy that. 2, my engine just quit. Soft. Advise the 2, my engine just quit. Advise the soft.
Okay, so what you just saw there was he came up on uniform. So he's got 2 radios, front and aft. He initially came up, said that. And he's like, no, wait, I need to go to aux. The aux radio, he's talking to his wingman, and he's telling his wingman, hey, I've got the issue. Please coordinate with the supervisor of flying at MacDill and just let him know, because he'll start running emergency checklist, downed aircraft checklist preemptively, and then the actual EP checklist as well. So they've all got procedures that they need to do. And that's where, people always say fighter pilots are single seat. We don't need anybody, but that's not true. Everybody's going to be brought into the loop here.
Absolutely.
Runway 18 left.
Hey, Rico, 2-4 top position quit.
Okay, same position there, 2-4 if you know.
Okay, this is 2-4. He's 27 miles northeast of the field. Going direct
Okay,
Tampa.
everybody shut up on the radio for just a second.
Copy.
Tampa.
Judy, sometimes you just got to tell everybody to shut up.
That's exactly right. Take control of the frequency. Tell them what you need. Excellent work.
So what's going on? He's declared the Mayday. What's going on behind the scenes from the ATC perspective at this point?
Excellent question. When he first declared his engines running rough, the controller, and great controller working this aircraft, because he's working one of our heavier sectors. It's a low altitude sector where we have a lot of, we call it Indian territory, where we have Cherokees, Apaches, and Warriors. And he was making approaches into several satellite airports all at the same time. And because this was a low altitude flight, he was the last controller at Tampa to be in contact with him when he enters him into the rig. That's why he's down there with all those civilian airplanes. So he had to keep talking to get his aircraft on one ILS approaches to get them separated. But in the meantime, he's telling the supervisor, hey, this guy's got an engine. It's running rough. He's climbing to altitude. And they're saying, okay, let's start getting traffic off at him. So instead of sending aircraft to his frequency, this low altitude controller, we're putting it on somebody else's frequency, or we're just pulling him out of the picture entirely. So we can reduce his workload so he can focus on this flight. In the meantime, I'm up in the tower cab, running the tower, and they're calling me upstairs to say, hey, we got a flight of 2, 18 north, coming in. One guy's got an engine out. Where do you want him? We want him on 18 left, and we'll have everybody waiting for him. So that's what we were doing up in the tower, getting everything moved from one side of the airport to the other, and making sure Catch Fire Rescue was on board and not there waiting for him.
And just to clarify the picture here, you're at Tampa International, not MacDill, right? This is all civilian. Everybody's a civilian that he's going to talk to on the ATC
Correct.
side.
And you notice the number 2, which again is a student of the F-16, but he's got a lot on his plate going on now too. He's got to try to figure out how he can help this guy, but he's got to make sure he's in control of his aircraft. And that's why you see the mileage just get mixed up, because he just said 28 miles. You know, from MacDill. So the SOP's not knowing if he's coming back to MacDill. Is he 28 from MacDill, or is he 28 from Tampa?
I got
They
you.
try and get clarified as we go along.
And also, Tampa has no barriers or cables, right?
Cool.
It adds to we're going to a civilian field, talking to civilians, to a runway that's long, but not cable So I can't drop the hook and take a rested landing on the departure end if I end up too high, too fast, and too hot.
Yep.
Retire 2-3. Retire 2-3, Tampa. You keep giving me DME. My engine is totally flamed out. I'm going to have to land there.
And the reason he's wanting that is because he's checking his glide profiles based on the distance. Because if I know I can't make it and the winds are too strong, I've got too much of a headwind, it's not going to work. Then I need to turn and punch out over someplace that's not going to kill people on the ground.
Yep.
Okay, you're presently 19 miles northeast of the airport.
All right, 19 miles at 15,000 feet. Whoa, we're not. I would be happier at 20,000 feet here, but it's we're gonna have to do some of that pilot stuff.
Heading 230. 230, retire 23. We're having lots of fun now. Let's slow on down to 205.
And see, now he's talking. See, I like this from a psychological perspective because he's relaxed. He's jovial with his backseater. He's just like, hey, it's just another day. Walk in the park. But I would bet in the tower cab, it wasn't relaxed like this, right? You guys are busy.
We were busy, but with the dual runways that we had at Tampa International, it was not a big deal to get everything in position pretty quick. So, no, yeah. I mean, it's something we do a lot.
Gotcha.
Retire 23, heading to 210 now. 210, vector straight into runway.
See a little bit of weather, too, so that's probably going to be a factor.
You'll see
afternoon global. Yes, sir.
That's correct.
Okay, so what they just talked about there was the ejection seat selector. It's the sequencer. So put it in aft means aft initiate. If he pulls the handle, it'll sequence the seats, and he'll go, and then the front seater will go. But they're talking about ejection stuff right now, and how they're gonna, if they need to get out of the aircraft, how they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
2-4, soft.
Join us up.
Yeah, he's that's
number 1 for Elena, right? Keep on 1200 radar service.
Don't have a head towards Tampa.
3-2, you copy that?
Stand by.
Perfect word at any time. Stand by. Can't just stand by.
Number 1 for Lima, you can contact the land approach 125.55. Copy 18 left. Copy 18 left. Tampa, retire 23. Still do not have tally on the field. Say a DME is the field now.
Stand by,
Retire 23. I cut you out. You're 15 north of the airport, so you're up. Passing 12,000 feet currently. That's fine. Have the airport in sight. Negative.
So one thing, this is, you said early 90s, right? 90-ish time frame?
Late 80s.
So this is probably a Block 30 when it was brand new. I flew the Block 30 almost 30 years later, 20-something years later. At this point, I'd have had the Diamond on the runway, but I don't even know if they could back then, So he is doing this all based on DME and bearing. And so with weather, this is a huge pucker factor. Like
it is.
I don't think people realize like how your engine's out. You're going to go into IMC conditions, instrument meteorological conditions, and you don't have all the fancy toys that we have today. This is pretty sporty. Because I don't see the Diamond. Like normally you'd see the Diamond somewhere around here, which I don't think they had GPS INS on these jets back and when they were brand new. So this is old school. But I don't know. Somebody who's flown them can probably correct me in the comments. All right, you see him kind of dumping the nose. He gets a little on the slow side. I don't know. He said he had 5,000 pounds of fuel, so he might need to be a little bit faster. But I think he's just trying to pick his way through this weather. So this is a bad spot. Okay, 12 miles north of Tampa. We're at, 11,000 feet. So he's done well. The winds are favorable for what we're doing. It's just now he's got to pick his way through these clouds. Whew, that's scary.
Copy 12.
Yeah,
If
11,000.
you see the runway, let me know right away. I can't see it for the clouds right now. Either.
Can't see it for the
Has he got
clouds.
the engine?
No, the engine's completely flamed out.
The engine has the airport now. 11 to 12 o'clock.
Okay, so he says the engine has seized up, so it's not even windmilling to give him anything. It is essentially a no restart situation.
And 1 mile. Copy.
Captain 10,000.
This is going to be a close one here.
Copy
100%.
that. That's 1-8 left, clear away.
Roger.
This is textbook energy management
DME.
on the edge.
10 miles north of the airport. Retired.
Okay, 10 miles. He's at 8,000 feet. It's going to be close. And he knows that. I mean, that's we train to these so many. Luckily, this happened to the instructor. You know, a student may not have made this with on the first try.
Roger. Retired 235 heading 180. 180.
So are they kind of dog-legging him? Is that why they gave him were they vectoring him around some weather, or were they just dog-legged based on
I think they were dog-legging him, and they want to get him in. They want to put him on a 10-mile final. They want to get him as close as they can, but they want to put him in a position where he can get the runway in a decent glide.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's get him on a 3 to 4 mile final and see how it goes.
Gotcha. So they're cognizant of that too. Like direct with the runway angle, you want to, make that corner. So they're trying to help him out with these vectors.
Right.
That's good. Back then, could they see the weather on the radar? Were the returns moderate to heavy extreme precipitation, like they say today, when they see radar thunderstorms and stuff?
We did have the weather display. It wasn't as sophisticated as it is now or when I left. But this puppy stuff here isn't going to give you much of a display unless it's, towering another 10,000 feet.
So they're just strictly working off the radar, getting him on the right geometry for it.
Yep.
Wow.
Retired 23, the airport, 12 o'clock and 8 miles.
So he's on an 8-mile final now.
Yep.
Got it. Retired 23. Retired 23, turn right at 190. You're 7.5 miles from the airport. Retired 23.
A little bit of a correction.
Keep your feet off the brake.
A little bit of a correction, and you notice now that the controller is only working this airplane.
Yeah. So you heard him too. He was saying, keep your feet off the brake pedals. And that's just a reminder because sometimes backseaters like to rest their feet up there. And I'd have just told them to keep your feet flat on the floor. But because what'll happen is you make a bad situation worse, blowing tires, because once the accumulators are gone, there's no more braking. That's it. We don't have a hydraulic system really to help us stop.
Brakes. High land. Retired 23, you're clear to land, runway 18 left. The wind is 220 at 6. The altimeter 3003. Advise the airport inside. You're 5.5 miles north. Retired 23.
All right, so we're high now, which is good. He has managed his energy perfectly. Typically in the F-16 on a Flameout straight in, you're looking for putting the runway 11 to 17 degrees nose low before you drop the landing gear. It's going to be tough to do if you can't see the runway. So he's going to have to do a lot of figuring this out.
So one more. Retired 23 heading 190. The airport 12 o'clock at 4.5 miles. Retired 23.
So he's essentially given him an ASR or a PAR, or more of an ASR. Was the radar, because I know an ASR is a surveillance radar, it's a highly tuned, but y'all didn't have that, right? You didn't have an ASR on that runway.
We had surveillance approaches to the runway at that time. So, yeah.
Okay.
So you do it on the same radar that you use for everyday operation for surveillance approach.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. The precision approach, like a GCA, that would take a different type of radar.
So he's able to kind of fine tune it using that same radar, just as if he's doing an ASR. Well, that's cool.
Yes.
2-4 is what you're going to make it.
Yeah, we're about 9 miles, 8 miles from the runway right now, passing 5,000 feet.
Okay, you heard that voice. That was the supervisor of flying saying, "Does it look like you're going to make it?" And the student's just saying, "I hope so."
Well, and again, he's given mileages for MacDill. It's 8.5 mile final. He's actually on a 4 mile final right now. That's why they are. But I'm sure he learned a lot from this.
So I missed it. Did you clear him the land, or was that approach that just cleared him the land?
Approach there. We just called down and said he's cleared to land.
So they go as a single frequency approach or de facto single frequency?
Just didn't change it.
Okay.
Runway in sight.
Tower 23, you have the airport inside now.
Just got the runway.
Now we know the runway's in sight.
Good Lord.
Third land, runway 18 left. Okay, we're looking at 2. Give me the winds off your picnic.
Winds are 32 at 2.
Wind is Tampa 220 at 6.
Can we make a left-hand break or right?
I'm going to go straight in.
Left-hand breaker, right. Oh, I love it. Because what he's thinking, he's thinking we're high. We're going to end up doing like a overhead, Flameout overhead pattern, which they're too low. He's in a bad spot right now, energy-wise, because now he's got too much because you're at 4,000 feet staring at the runway. It is in that 11 to 17 degree window, so he's just going to have to dump it, boards out, and just maybe do a couple check turns left and right and make it work. But, typical student, like, oh, we're doing the break here? No, we don't. And you see him at this point, correct? From the tower?
Yeah. Yes. We saw both of them popping out of the cloud.
Did he have his gear down yet, or he's still yet to?
No,
because I don't see. It's coming up. Yeah, because he didn't have the AOA staple.
Gear's coming down.
There it goes. That's what I was talking about just for the kids at home, those of you that play BMS or DCS. You're looking for that 11 to 17 degrees nose low, and that'll give you enough energy with the gear. So when the drag of the gear, that's when you want to drop that landing gear. So he's right in that window. He's right at 15 degrees. So he's going to have excessive energy, which it's easier to bleed off excessive energy sometimes than gain energy. How long is the runway?
8,300 feet.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh. Looking at this site picture, I would be comfortable at 10,000 feet. 8,300 is sporty on a good day in that jet with those little bitty brakes. Oh, with no cables. Yeah, he's going to have to dump the gear and then start aiming super
got 3
short.
greens.
Okay, checks.
See his airspeed creeping up to 240, 230. This is... If you ever watched the space shuttle land, this is what it looks like, by the way. Yeah, so he's got a whole bunch of knots. Now, one thing to note on the F-16, I want to say it's 195 knots or 190 knots. It's been so long, but if you drop the landing gear above 190 knots, the nose gear may not come out, especially since it may be an alternate extension. So what'll happen is all he'll have is the mains out, and then when he slows down, then the nose gear will pop out. But this is textbook. I mean, you're landing short, aim short, and then you're going to bleed off the energy in the flare.
This is okay.
I've never seen that technique, but if it works, it works.
Yep.
Oh, gosh. All right. Flare it off, flare it off, flare it off. That's 1,000 feet down, so he's got 6,000 feet remaining about here. Still got aero brake.
5,000 to go. 4,000 to go.
And the way they know that, for those that don't know, is the boards. The boards, right? You have the boards at Tampa. So the board, a 4,000 feet remaining.
33 Yankee contact, license tower 124.5.
Still got 3 to go.
3,000.
And Tampa departure. This is Free Tower 24 on the go, requesting vectors. Straight 2 to go.
The tire 24 was it?
You got it. That's 24. That was 23 wingman.
Tire 24 at your radar contact. Climb and maintain 3,000. Which will be back to the runway forward.
Nice.
The runway 3,000. And this is 24. He made it in, no problem.
Okay, you see the canopy coming up. That's, again, because the hydrazine's running. It's a hazmat situation. What are you thinking now that it got stopped? Did you know about the hazmat and the hydrazine? I mean, were you guys briefed on all that? I'm assuming.
No, we were not. But that canopy came up and they were out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they have to get away from it. It's
Right.
not good.
And I think Crash Fire Rescue may have had some experience with it because they were there on the downwind side of the jet to try to get these guys up as soon as they got off the airplane and, put water out if they needed it. I don't think they did, as I recall. I think they just tipped everybody away.
That was great. I've never seen that one before. That's such a good example of crew resource management and just making it happen.
That's exactly right. And it's something that, controllers, pilots have to be prepared at all the time. And we used to tell the controllers, the pilots practice engine out procedures, they practice short approaches. When you're sitting down there working and you got time, especially if you're training somebody, the instructor should be asking them, okay, where if this guy lives with his engine right now? What options have you got for him? What if your radar goes out right now? What do you plan to do?
Yeah.
What's your first call? And run those scenarios, through your mind and actually talk them out. Come up with a plan. Be prepared.
So I think it's safe to say without a good controller and that help, that this would have been a different outcome.
But like I told you when I said this, it's amazing to me because as soon as we got our 2-3 declared that emergency, the first thing out of his mouth was, we need to slow to 205, and boom, he's at 205. He knows the airspeed he needs right now. And when he made that call to Pete, the controller that was working him, he said, I need a vector to Tampa. Pete says, fly ahead in 200. Like that's the runway 18 left.
Awesome.
Which just, incredible. And then the coordination from there on, getting the airplanes off of Pete's frequency, making sure we respond and give her tower 2-3 a mile by mile check, calling us in the tower to let us know what's going on. And we're sitting there waiting for him. It just worked out to be a good scenario.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing this. This was really educational.
You're very welcome. Very
Awesome.
welcome.